Maya Chen had always been different from other humans on the colony ship Horizon's Edge. While most people stayed in the safe, sterile corridors of the human sectors, she spent her time in the neutral zones where different alien species mixed and traded. Her parents thought she was reckless. Her friends called her crazy. But Maya couldn't help herself. She was fascinated by the incredible diversity of life the galaxy had to offer. The ship was massive, home to over 50 different species making their way to the new colony world of Kepler 442b. Each species had their own section, their own customs, their own rules. Most barely interacted beyond basic trade agreements. But Maya had learned 17 different alien languages and could navigate the cultural maze better than most diplomats twice her age. That's how she found herself in the Lupari section on what should have been a normal Tuesday. The Lupari were wolf-like beings, standing nearly 8 feet tall with thick fur and intelligent amber eyes. They lived in tight pack structures with strict hierarchies based on age, strength, and hunting ability. Maya had studied their culture extensively and found their loyalty systems fascinating, even if their customs seemed harsh by human standards. She was walking through their market district, admiring the beautiful bone carvings and woven tapestries, when she heard the commotion. Angry voices echoed from the residential area, and Maya's universal translator was picking up words like burden, weakness, and exile. Her curiosity got the better of her, and she followed the sounds deeper into the Lupari district. What she found broke her heart. In a small clearing between the residential towers, a crowd of adult Lupari had gathered around a much smaller figure. The young wolf, barely reaching Maya's shoulder, was backed against a wall, his silver-gray fur matted and his amber eyes wide with fear and defiance. Despite his obvious terror, he held his chin high, refusing to cower before the pack elders who surrounded him. Kethare of the Silver Moon Pack, an elderly Lupari with battle scars across his muzzle, announced in their guttural language. "You have reached your 16th cycle without completing your trial of strength. By our ancient laws, you are no longer welcome among us." The young wolf, Kethare, straightened even more. "I have tried, pack leader Vorin. I have trained every day, but my body will not silence." Vorin's voice boomed across the clearing. "Excuses are for the weak. A Lupari who cannot hunt, who cannot fight, who cannot protect the pack is no Lupari at all. You are exile, Kethare. You have until the next sleep cycle to leave our territory forever." Maya watched in horror as the other Lupari began to turn away, leaving the young wolf alone in the clearing. Some looked sad, others disappointed, but none challenged the elder's decision. It was clearly an ancient tradition, one that had been followed for generations. Kethare stood there for a long moment after the crowd dispersed, his shoulders shaking slightly. Maya could see him fighting back tears, trying to maintain what dignity he had left. Finally, he gathered a small bundle of belongings and began walking toward the edge of the Lupari district. Maya knew she should mind her own business. Interfering in alien cultural practices was strictly forbidden. The colony ship had strict non-interference policies to prevent conflicts between species. But she couldn't just watch a young person, regardless of species, be thrown out to fend for themselves in the harsh corridors of the ship's lower levels. She followed at a distance as Kethare made his way to the abandoned sections of the ship. These were areas that had been designated for future expansion but remained empty and unheated. They were technically neutral territory, but they were also dangerous. Pirates, smugglers, and worse things lurked in the shadows down there. Kethare found a small storage room and curled up in the corner, pulling his thin blanket around his shoulders. Maya watched from the doorway as his brave facade finally cracked, and quiet sobs echoed in the empty space. "Hey," she said softly in Lupari, stepping into the room. "Are you okay?" Kethare's head snapped up, his hand instinctively reaching for a small knife at his belt. When he saw it was just a human girl, barely older than himself, he relaxed slightly but remained wary. "You should not be here, human," he said, his voice hoarse from crying. "These levels are not safe." "Neither is being alone when you're hurting," Maya replied, settling down a few feet away from him. She was careful to keep her distance. Lupari were very protective of their personal space, especially when stressed. Kethare studied her for a moment. "You understand my language well. Most humans on this ship cannot speak more than trade pidgin. I like learning about different cultures, Maya said. I heard what happened back there. I'm sorry. The young wolf's eyes flashed with anger and shame. You heard my disgrace, you mean? You heard how I am too weak to be a true Lupari. I heard a bunch of adults pick on someone smaller than them because he didn't fit their narrow definition of strength, Maya shot back. In human culture, we call that bullying. Kethare blinked in surprise. You do not think I deserved exile? I think exiling a teenager because he's different is barbaric, Maya said bluntly. What exactly was this trial of strength? Kethare hesitated, then seemed to decide there was no point in hiding anything now. A Lupari must prove they can provide for the pack by completing 3 challenges before their 16th cycle. They must hunt and kill a large prey animal alone. They must defeat another pack member in single combat. And they must carry a wounded packmate to safety across difficult terrain. And you couldn't complete them? Kethare's ears flattened against his head in shame. I am small for my age. And my joints hurt sometimes, making it hard to run fast or fight well. The pack healers say I have a condition that weakens my bones. It is not life-threatening, but it means I will never be as strong as other Lupari. Maya felt her anger growing. So they threw you out because you have a medical condition? That's not just barbaric, it's stupid. You're obviously intelligent, you speak well, you seem thoughtful. Doesn't that count for anything? Intelligence without strength means nothing to the pack, Kethare said bitterly. A Lupari who cannot hunt cannot eat. A Lupari who cannot fight cannot defend. A Lupari who cannot run cannot scout. What use am I? Plenty of use, if they weren't so narrow-minded, Maya muttered. She studied the young wolf for a moment. Despite his obvious physical limitations, he carried himself with dignity. His eyes were sharp and alert, constantly watching for threats. His belongings, though few, were neatly organized. This wasn't a lazy or worthless person, this was someone who had been failed by a rigid system. What will you do now? She asked. Kethare shrugged, trying to look unconcerned. Find work, I suppose. The ship has many maintenance tasks that need doing. Perhaps I can earn enough credits for passage on a different vessel when we reach the colony world. Where will you sleep? What will you eat? I will manage, he said, but Maya could hear the uncertainty in his voice. She made a decision that would change both their lives forever. Come with me, she said, standing up. What? You're not staying in this freezing storage room. I know a place where you'll be safe and warm. Kethare stood as well, but shook his head. Human, I appreciate your kindness, but I cannot accept charity. I have already lost my honor, I will not lose my pride as well. It's not charity, Maya said firmly. It's a job offer. I do not understand. Maya smiled. My parents run a small research lab in the human sector. We study alien biology and culture for the Colonial Preparation Project. My mom is a xenobiologist and my dad is a cultural anthropologist. They're always complaining about not having enough help with their research, and they pay well. But I am not a scientist. You don't need to be. You know Lupari culture better than any textbook, and you're obviously bright enough to learn the rest. We need someone to help organize specimens, maintain equipment, and assist with cultural translation projects. Plus, the job comes with housing in our family quarters. Kethare stared at her. You would do this for me? But you barely know me. I know enough, Maya said. I know you've been treated unfairly, and I know you deserve a chance to prove yourself. The question is, are you willing to work hard and learn new things? For the first time since his exile, hope flickered in Kethare's amber eyes. Yes, he said quietly. Yes, I am willing. Good. Grab your stuff and let's go. As they walked through the corridors toward the human sector, Maya couldn't help but notice how Kethare moved. Despite his smaller size and obvious pain, he was graceful and alert. His head turned constantly, watching for threats, analyzing their surroundings. He might not be a traditional Lupari warrior, but he had the instincts of a survivor. Maya, he said suddenly, as they entered the human district. Yeah? Why are you helping me? Maya thought about it for a moment. Because it's the right thing to do. Because you deserve better. And because I have a feeling you're going to surprise a lot of people. When they reached the Chen family lab, Maya's parents were initially shocked to see their daughter bringing home an exiled Lupari. But, after hearing Kethare's story and seeing his eagerness to work, Dr. Sarah Chen and Professor James Chen agreed to give him a chance. We can offer you a trial period, Dr. Chen said in careful Lupari. 2 weeks to see how you adapt to the work. If it goes well, we'll make it permanent. Kethare bowed deeply. Thank you, Dr. Chen. I will not disappoint you. That first night, as Maya showed Kethare to the small but comfortable guest room that would be his new home, she could see the overwhelming gratitude in his eyes. I still do not understand why you chose to help me, he said softly. Maybe someday you will, Maya replied. For now, just focus on proving them all wrong. Over the next few days, Kethare threw himself into his new role with determination that impressed everyone in the lab. Despite never having worked with scientific equipment before, he learned quickly and asked thoughtful questions. His knowledge of Lupari culture proved invaluable for Dr. Chen's research, and his careful attention to detail made him excellent at specimen cataloging. But Maya noticed something else about him. He was incredibly observant. He spotted inconsistencies in data that others missed, noticed behavioral patterns in alien species that even experienced researchers overlooked, and had an intuitive understanding of biological systems that surprised everyone. He has a natural scientific mind, her mother told Maya one evening. It's rare to see someone adapt so quickly to research methodology. More importantly, Kethare was happy. For the first time in his life, he was valued for his mind rather than judged for his physical limitations. He worked longer hours than required, stayed late to help with complex projects, and never complained about anything. Word of the arrangement slowly spread through the ship's alien community. Some species were curious about the human family that had taken in an exiled Lupari. Others were critical, calling it unnatural interference in cultural traditions. But Maya didn't care what others thought. She could see Kethare blossoming in his new environment. 3 weeks into his trial period, everything changed. Maya was working late in the lab, helping Kethare organize tissue samples from various alien species, when the ship's emergency alarms began blaring. Red lights flashed throughout the corridors, and the captain's voice echoed over the intercom. All passengers and crew report to emergency stations immediately. We have detected an unknown vessel approaching at high speed. This is not a drill. Maya and Kethare looked at each other in confusion and fear. Space pirates were a constant threat on colony ships, which carried valuable cargo and desperate people with nowhere to run. We should get to the human sector emergency station, Maya said, but Kethare was already moving toward the lab's observation window. Maya, he said urgently, look at this. She joined him at the window and gasped. In the distance, she could see a sleek black ship moving alongside the colony vessel. It was smaller than the horizon's edge, but clearly armed and dangerous looking. Pirates, she whispered. No, Kethare said, his voice filled with recognition and dread. Those markings on the hull, that's a Zephyrian attack vessel. Maya's blood ran cold. The Zephyrians were one of the most feared species in the galaxy, militant, aggressive, and completely opposed to mixed-species colonies. They had destroyed several colony ships in the past, claiming that mixing different species was an abomination that weakened the galaxy. We need to get to the emergency station, she said again, pulling at Kethare's arm. But the young wolf was studying the enemy ship with intense concentration. Maya, something is wrong. Zephyrian attack ships always travel in groups of 3. This one is alone, and it's moving strangely. What do you mean? Look at its approach vector. It's not positioning for an attack, it's positioning for a boarding. Before Maya could ask what that meant, the ship shuddered violently. The lights flickered, and they could hear the distinctive sound of docking clamps engaging. They're coming aboard, Kethare said grimly. Within minutes, they could hear sounds of fighting in the corridors outside. Energy weapon fire, shouting in multiple languages, and the heavy footsteps of armed soldiers echoed through the ship. The emergency stations are compromised, Maya realized. We can't get to the human sector now. Kethare was quiet for a moment, his amber eyes darting around the lab as he thought quickly. Maya, do you trust me? Of course. Then, follow me. I know a way to keep us safe, but we have to move now. Without waiting for an answer, Kethare grabbed an emergency supply pack and led Maya to a maintenance panel she had never noticed before. He quickly opened it, revealing a narrow service tunnel that ran between the ship's outer hull and interior walls. How did you know about this? Maya asked as they crawled into the cramped space. I explored the ship's blueprints during my first week here, Kethare explained quietly. I wanted to know every possible escape route in case the Lupari tried to reclaim me by force. They crawled through the tunnels for what felt like hours, following Kethare's lead as he navigated the maze of service corridors with confidence. Behind them, they could hear the sounds of battle growing closer and more intense. Finally, Kethare led them to an observation post near the ship's communication array. Through a small window, they could see Zephyrian soldiers moving through the corridors, forcing passengers and crew into groups. They're taking hostages, Maya whispered in horror. No, Kethare said, his voice tight with anger. They're sorting them. Maya watched in growing horror as she realized what he meant. The Zephyrians were separating the different species into different groups. Humans in one area, Lupari in another, the peaceful Centauri traders in a third group. They're going to execute everyone, she said, understanding flooding through her. Not if we stop them, Kethare replied quietly. Maya stared at him. We? Kethare, we're just two teenagers hiding in a maintenance tunnel. There are dozens of armed soldiers out there. And they don't know we're here, he pointed out. That gives us an advantage. What are you thinking? Kethare was quiet for a moment, studying the soldiers' movements with the same intense focus he brought to his lab work. The communication array, he said finally. If we could send a distress signal with our exact coordinates, the Colonial Defense Force could find us. The Zephyrians would have disabled the main communications already. The main ones, yes. But there's a backup array in this section that's designed to be hidden from attackers. I found the schematics while helping your father with his research on ship systems. Maya felt a flicker of hope. Can you operate it? I think so. But we'd need to get past the guards they've posted. They spent several minutes watching the enemy soldiers' patrol patterns, noting when they changed shifts and where the blind spots in their coverage were. There's a window of opportunity every 20 minutes when the guards rotate, Kethare observed. We'd have maybe 3 minutes to get to the array, send the signal, and get back to the tunnels. That's not much time. It's enough, Kethare said with quiet confidence. But, Maya, if this goes wrong. It won't go wrong, she said firmly. You know these systems better than anyone, and you're the most careful person I've ever met. If anyone can do this, it's you. When the next rotation came, they moved quickly and silently through the corridors. Kethare's knowledge of the ship's layout proved invaluable as he led them through service passages and maintenance areas that the Zephyrian soldiers had overlooked. The backup communication array was hidden behind an innocuous-looking wall panel in a storage room. Kethare quickly accessed it, his fingers moving over the controls with surprising skill. Where did you learn to do this? Maya whispered as he worked. I've been studying everything I could get my hands on, he replied without looking up. Engineering manuals, communication protocols, navigation systems. I wanted to be useful to your family in every way possible. Within 2 minutes, he had accessed the array and was inputting their distress signal. His fingers flew over the controls as he included their exact position, the number of enemy soldiers, and the estimated number of hostages. Signal sent, he said quietly. Now we need to. The storage room door suddenly burst open, and a massive Zephyrian soldier stepped inside. His reptilian features were twisted with anger, and his weapon was already raised. Found them, he snarled into his communicator. Two juveniles hiding in storage bay 7. Maya's heart stopped. They were caught. But Kethare stepped protectively in front of her, his small frame no match for the towering soldier but his courage unwavering. "Run, Maya," he said quietly. "Get back to the tunnels." "I'm not leaving you," she shot back. The Zephyrian soldier laughed coldly. "Neither of you is going anywhere. The commander wants to question all survivors before the executions begin." He moved forward to grab them, but something unexpected happened. Kethare, despite his physical limitations and smaller size, moved with sudden speed and precision. Instead of trying to fight the much larger soldier directly, he used his knowledge of anatomy learned from hours of studying alien biology in the lab to strike at specific pressure points that would temporarily disable his opponent. The soldier stumbled, confused and momentarily paralyzed. It wasn't enough to defeat him, but it bought them precious seconds. "The tunnels!" Kethare shouted, pushing Maya toward the open maintenance panel. They dove into the service corridors just as more soldiers arrived. Behind them, angry voices shouted orders, and they could hear pursuit in the main corridors. "They'll search the tunnels now," Maya panted as they crawled rapidly through the narrow space. "Yes," Kethare agreed. "But they don't know the system like we do. We can stay ahead of them." For the next hour, they played a deadly game of cat and mouse through the ship's service areas. Kethare's knowledge of the ship's layout and his careful observation of the soldiers' patterns kept them one step ahead of capture. Finally, they heard new sounds echoing through the ship, different weapons, different voices, different energy signatures. "Colonial Defense Force," Maya breathed in relief. "Your signal worked." The rescue was swift and efficient. The CDF Marines overwhelmed the Zephyrian boarding party, freed the hostages, and secured the ship. Within 2 hours, the immediate danger was over. As they climbed out of the maintenance tunnels, dirty and exhausted but alive, they were met by Captain Rodriguez of the CDF. "You two sent that distress signal," she said. It wasn't a question. "Yes, ma'am," Maya replied. "That signal saved over 3,000 lives," Captain Rodriguez continued. "The Zephyrians had already begun executing hostages when we arrived. If we'd been even 10 minutes later." She didn't need to finish the sentence. "How did you manage to access the backup communication array?" "Our intel suggested that those systems were nearly impossible for non-military personnel to operate." Maya looked at Kethare, who was standing quietly beside her. "He figured it out," she said simply. "He's brilliant." Captain Rodriguez studied the young Lupari with new interest. "What's your name, son?" "Kethare, ma'am." "Formerly of the Silver Moon Pack." "Formerly?" "I was exiled for weakness," Kethare said, his head held high despite the shame in his voice. Captain Rodriguez looked between Maya and Kethare, understanding flickering in her eyes. "I see. Well, Kethare, formerly of the Silver Moon Pack, you've shown more courage and intelligence today than most of my veteran officers." "That was exceptional work." Word of their heroism spread quickly through the ship. Within hours, everyone knew the story of how an exiled Lupari teenager and a human girl had saved thousands of lives by outsmarting a Zephyrian boarding party. The reaction was mixed. Many people, especially from species that valued courage and quick thinking, praised both Maya and Kethare as heroes. Others, particularly among the more traditional Lupari, were confused and embarrassed that someone they had rejected as worthless had proven so valuable. But the most interesting reaction came from an unexpected source. 3 days after the rescue, pack leader Vorin arrived at the Chen family lab. The elderly Lupari looked uncomfortable and uncertain, emotions that Maya had never seen him display before. "I wish to speak with the exile Kethare," he announced formally. Maya's parents looked uncertain, but Kethare stepped forward calmly. "I am here, pack leader." "What do you wish?" Vorin studied the young wolf for a long moment. "The ship speaks of your actions during the attack. They say you saved many lives through cleverness and courage." "I did what was necessary," Kethare replied simply. You showed intelligence in battle, resourcefulness under pressure, and willingness to risk yourself for others, Vorin continued slowly. These are valued traits among our people. But not enough to overcome my physical weaknesses, Cathare said quietly. Vorin was silent for several heartbeats. When he spoke again, his voice was careful and formal. The pack elders have reconsidered your exile. Your actions prove that strength takes many forms. If you wish to return, you would be welcome. Maya held her breath, waiting for Kethare's response. She knew how much his exile had hurt him, how much he missed his pack and his culture. But Kethare's answer surprised everyone in the room. Thank you, pack leader Vorin. Your offer honors me. But I must respectfully decline. You decline? Vorin could not hide his shock. I have found a new pack, Cathare said, looking at Maya and her parents. One that valued my mind before my actions proved my worth. One that saw potential where others saw only weakness. I am grateful for your offer, but my place is here. Vorin stared at him for a long moment, then slowly nodded. I understand. You have chosen wisely, young one. Perhaps we were the ones who showed weakness. After the pack leader left, Dr. Chen pulled Maya and Cathare aside. We've received an interesting communication, she said. Captain Rodriguez has recommended both of you for the Colonial Defense Forces Youth Academy program. It's an accelerated track for promising young people to train as scouts, analysts, and cultural liaisons. Both of us? Maya asked. Both of you. It seems your partnership impressed some very important people. What do you think? Maya looked at Cathare, who was staring at the official invitation with wonder in his amber eyes. What do you think? She asked him. I think, Cathare said slowly, that 3 weeks ago I was worthless exile sleeping in a storage room. Today, I am being invited to join the Colonial Defense Force. The galaxy is full of surprises. Good surprises or bad surprises? Cathare smiled, the first truly happy expression Maya had ever seen on his face. With you as my partner? I think they will be very good surprises. As Maya looked at her friend, her partner, she couldn't help but smile back. She had set out to rescue an abandoned young wolf from an unfair exile. Instead, she had found something much more valuable, a true friend who would stand beside her no matter what challenges the galaxy might throw at them. The first chapter of their adventure was ending, but Maya had a feeling the best parts were still to come. 6 months after the Zephyrian attack, Maya-chan and Cathare found themselves standing before the imposing gates of the Kepler Colonial Defense Academy on the newly settled world of Kepler 442b. The planet's 3 moons hung in the alien sky above them, casting strange shadows across the Academy grounds that stretched for kilometers in every direction. The Academy was unlike anything either of them had ever seen. Massive training complexes rose from the purple grass like metallic mountains, their surfaces gleaming with advanced technology. Hover platforms carried cadets between buildings, while holographic displays showed tactical scenarios playing out in 3 dimensions. The air hummed with energy and purpose. Nervous? Maya asked her partner as they approached the registration building. Cathare's amber eyes were fixed on the other new arrivals streaming through the gates, young beings from dozens of different species, all selected for their exceptional potential. Terrified, he admitted quietly. These cadets are all here because they're the best and brightest of their species. I'm here because I got lucky once. You're here because you're brilliant, Maya corrected firmly. And because you have gifts that no one else does. Don't let anyone make you forget that. The registration process was overwhelming. They were assigned dormitory rooms, thankfully in the same building, given schedules packed with classes Maya had never heard of, and introduced to their academic advisors, stern-faced officers who looked like they could wrestle starships with their bare hands. Their advisor was Commander Thale, a centauri with 4 arms and the disconcerting ability to write notes, type on a holographic keyboard, and gesture expressively all at the same time. Her blue skin was marked with the ritual scars of a veteran officer, and her solid black eyes missed nothing. Cadet Chen, Cadet Cathare, she said in accented standard as they sat in her office. Your arrival here has caused quite a stir. Most cadets are nominated by their planetary governments or military academies. You two were personally recommended by Colonial Defense Force High Command. We're honored to be here, ma'am, Maya replied formally. Honor is earned, not given, Commander Thale said bluntly. Your actions on the horizon's edge showed promise, but this academy will test you in ways you cannot imagine. 60% of cadets wash out in their first year. Are you prepared for that possibility? We're prepared to work harder than anyone else here, Kethare said quietly. Commander Thale studied him with interest. Confidence is good, cadet. Overconfidence is fatal. Tell me, what do you know about the Academy's training philosophy? Maya and Kethare exchanged glances. They had studied the basic information, but they suspected they were about to learn much more. The Academy trains scouts, analysts, and cultural liaisons for colonial defense, Maya said carefully. Correct, but incomplete, Commander Thale replied. We train problem solvers. The galaxy is vast and full of situations that don't fit into neat categories. A scout might need to negotiate with hostile aliens one day and analyze alien technology the next. An analyst might need to lead a rescue mission when all the officers are dead. A cultural liaison might need to fight their way out of a diplomatic disaster. She activated a holographic display showing a three-dimensional map of the Academy grounds. Your training will cover 7 core areas: xenobiology, interspecies communication, tactical analysis, survival skills, leadership development, advanced technology, and crisis management. You will be tested constantly, often in ways you don't expect. What kind of tests? Kethare asked. Commander Thale smiled, and it wasn't entirely reassuring. The kind where failure means you wash out. The kind where success means you might be ready to keep billions of colonists alive when everything goes wrong. Their first day of classes was a humbling experience. The other cadets were indeed exceptional young beings who had excelled in prestigious academies, military training programs, and advanced educational institutions across the galaxy. Many of them looked at Maya and Kethare with curiosity, skepticism, or outright dismissal. In xenobiology class, Professor Veltar, a massive insectoid being with multiple eyes, assigned them to identify tissue samples from 50 different alien species. While Maya struggled with species she had never encountered, she noticed that Kethare was working through the samples with methodical precision. How are you doing this? She whispered. Pattern recognition, he replied quietly. Each species' tissue has unique cellular structures based on their evolutionary environment. If you know what to look for, you can extrapolate from partial information. By the end of class, Kethare had correctly identified 47 of the 50 samples, the highest score in the class. Several cadets stared at him with new respect, while others whispered among themselves about the lucky refugee. Interspecies communication proved to be Maya's strength. She already spoke 17 languages, but the class went far beyond vocabulary and grammar. Professor Chuesh, a graceful being whose species communicated primarily through color changes in their skin, taught them to recognize subtle cultural cues that could mean the difference between successful negotiation and interstellar war. Communication is not about words, she told the class, her skin shifting through different hues to emphasize her points. It is about understanding the fears, hopes, and values that shape how different species see the universe. Cadet Chen, please demonstrate. Maya found herself paired with a Corvan cadet, a reptilian species known for their aggressive nature and complex honor codes. The challenge was to negotiate a theoretical trade agreement without triggering the Corvan's cultural taboos. As she worked through the scenario, Maya realized that success required not just language skills but genuine empathy. She had to understand why certain topics enraged the Corvan, what motivated their fierce pride, and how to frame proposals in ways that respected their cultural values while achieving her objectives. Excellent work, Professor Chuesh said as Maya successfully concluded the negotiation. You demonstrated true cultural intelligence, the ability to see through another being's eyes. But their greatest challenge came in tactical analysis class, taught by the intimidating Major Esekator, a battle-scarred warrior from a species that looked like 7-foot-tall armored bears. He was famous throughout the academy for his brutal honesty and impossible standards. Today we discuss the Tartak incident, he announced, activating a holographic display that showed a space battle between colonial ships and an unknown alien fleet. 3 months ago, this engagement resulted in the complete destruction of a CDF task force. Your assignment is to determine what went wrong and how it could have been prevented. The holographic battle was chaotic and confusing. Ships maneuvered in 3 dimensions while energy weapons lit up space like deadly fireworks. Maya watched in horror as colonial vessels were systematically destroyed by an enemy that seemed to anticipate their every move. While other cadets focused on weapon capabilities and ship movements, Kethare was studying something else entirely. The timing, he murmured to Maya. Look at the timing of the attacks. Maya studied the display more carefully. The enemy ships aren't just faster, they're responding to our movements before our ships have fully committed to them. Exactly. This isn't superior technology or tactics. This is intelligence. You mean they had spies? Or something better, Kethare said grimly. Maya, I think they had our communication codes. They spent hours analyzing the battle data, cross-referencing communication timestamps with tactical movements. Gradually, a disturbing picture emerged. Every time the colonial fleet changed tactics, the enemy seemed to know about its icons before the maneuver began. When Major Esikator called for reports, most cadets focused on conventional explanations, superior alien technology, better training, numerical advantages. Then, Kethare raised his hand. Sir, we believe the enemy had compromised our communication systems. The room fell silent. Major Esikator's massive form seemed to grow even more intimidating as he focused his attention on the young Lupari. Explain. Kethare activated his tablet, projecting his analysis onto the main display. The timing patterns suggest the enemy was intercepting and decoding our tactical communications in real time. They weren't just reacting to our movements, they were anticipating them. And how would you test this hypothesis, Cadet? By examining the communication logs for signs of unauthorized access or unusual encryption patterns, Maya added, understanding where her partner was going with the analysis. Major Esikator studied their work for several long moments. The other cadets watched nervously, waiting for him to tear apart their theory. Instead, he did something none of them expected, he smiled. Correct, he said simply. The Tartak incident was caused by a security breach in our quantum communication system. It took our intelligence services 3 weeks to reach the same conclusion you two arrived at in one afternoon. The room erupted in surprised murmurs. Several cadets looked at Maya and Kethare with new respect, while others seemed angry that the outsiders had succeeded where they had failed. But their success in academics was only part of the challenge. The academy also required intensive physical training, and this was where Kethare's limitations became most apparent. The survival skills course was particularly brutal. Cadets were dropped in the planet's wilderness with minimal equipment and expected to navigate to a series of checkpoints while avoiding various hazards, both natural and artificial. During their first survival exercise, Maya watched with growing concern as Kethare struggled to keep up with the other cadets. His joints were clearly bothering him, and the heavy equipment pack seemed to weigh him down more than it should. Maybe you should rest for a while, she suggested as they stopped to check their navigation equipment. I'm fine, Kethare insisted, but she could see the pain in his eyes. You're not fine, and that's okay. We're partners, we work together. Maya, I can't ask you to slow down for me. The other cadets already think I don't belong here. I don't care what the other cadets think. I care about you, and I care about us succeeding together. They developed a strategy that played to both their strengths. Maya carried more of the physical burden, while Kethare used his analytical skills to find the most efficient routes and identify potential hazards. His knowledge of alien biology proved invaluable when they encountered dangerous native wildlife, and his pattern recognition abilities helped them solve the complex navigation puzzles that were part of each exercise. But not all their classmates appreciated their partnership approach. Cadet Valfan, an aggressive young warrior from the Draconian Empire, made his opinions clear during a particularly challenging survival exercise. His species valued individual strength above all else, and he saw Kethare as a weak link that was holding Maya back. Human, he said to Maya as their group sheltered from a fierce storm, why do you burden yourself with the crippled wolf? You could achieve much more without dead weight slowing you down. Kethare isn't dead weight, Maya replied coldly. He's the smartest person in our class, and a better partner than you could ever hope to be. Velthon's reptilian features twisted with contempt. Intelligence means nothing if you cannot survive. The galaxy is harsh, it destroys the weak. The galaxy destroys the stupid, Kethare said quietly from where he was monitoring their communications equipment. Like those draconian ships that got ambushed last month because they ignored intelligence reports about pirate activity in the Outer Rim. Velthon's eyes blazed with fury. You dare insult the draconian navy? I'm stating facts. Your people are so focused on individual combat prowess that you ignore strategic thinking. That's why you've lost more ships to pirates this year than any other species. The confrontation might have escalated to violence, but the storm chose that moment to intensify, forcing everyone to focus on survival rather than personal conflicts. Later, as they huddled in their emergency shelter, Maya asked Kethare why he had antagonized Velthon. Because bullies need to understand that intelligence is a weapon too, he replied quietly. I may not be able to beat him in a fight, but I can make him look stupid in front of the entire class. That's dangerous. The Draconians have a reputation for holding grudges. So do the Lupari, Kethare said with a slight smile. The difference is, we're smarter about our revenge. Their real test came during the advanced technology course, taught by Dr. Axel Prime, a cybernetic being who was more machine than biological. The class focused on understanding and adapting alien technology, a crucial skill for scouts who might encounter completely unknown civilizations. Today you will be working with recovered artifacts from the Zephyrian ship that attacked the Horizon's Edge, Dr. Axel Prime announced, his metallic voice echoing through the laboratory. Your task is to reverse engineer their cloaking technology. Maya felt Kethare tense beside her. The Zephyrian attack was still a painful memory for both of them. Problem, cadet? Dr. Axel Prime asked, noticing Kethare's reaction. No sir, Kethare replied firmly. I'm ready to work. The Zephyrian technology was unlike anything they had encountered before. The cloaking device appeared to be a seamless piece of crystal-like material with no obvious controls or power source. Most cadets spend hours trying to find hidden panels or activation switches. But Kethare approached the problem differently. Instead of looking for mechanical interfaces, he studied the device's molecular structure using the lab's advanced scanners. Maya, he said excitedly after several hours of careful analysis, this isn't technology as we understand it, it's biotechnology. The crystal isn't a machine, it's a living organism. Living? But it's completely inorganic. Living doesn't always mean biological. Look at these energy patterns, they're too complex to be purely mechanical. I think the Zephyrians have found a way to grow crystalline organisms that can manipulate electromagnetic fields. Working together, they developed a theory that the cloaking device was actually a symbiotic organism that responded to specific pheromone signals from its Zephyrian operators. Instead of trying to activate it mechanically, they attempted to synthesize the appropriate chemical triggers. Their breakthrough came when Maya suggested using samples from the Zephyrian prisoners captured during the Horizon's Edge attack. With Dr. Axel Prime's permission, they analyzed traces of Zephyrian biochemistry and successfully synthesized a compound that triggered the device's activation. Remarkable, Dr. Axel Prime said as the device shimmered and became nearly invisible. You have succeeded where our best engineers have failed. How did you reach this conclusion? Pattern recognition and interspecies thinking, Kethare explained. Most people approach this from a purely technological perspective. But, if you consider how different species might develop different solutions to the same problems, other possibilities emerge. Their success gained them recognition throughout the academy, but it also brought unwanted attention from Cadet Velthon and his supporters. The Draconian had been humiliated by their consistent academic success, and his frustration was growing into dangerous anger. The confrontation came during a leadership development exercise designed to test cadets under extreme pressure. Teams were given complex crisis scenarios and expected to develop effective responses within strict time limits. Maya's team was assigned to deal with a theoretical first contact situation gone wrong. A colony ship had encountered a new alien species, negotiations had broken down, and both sides were preparing for war. The challenge was to find a peaceful solution before the situation escalated to violence. While Maya focused on communication strategies and Kethare analyzed the alien behavior patterns described in the scenario, Velthon deliberately undermined their efforts. He argued for aggressive military responses, dismissed their cultural analysis as worthless, and eventually began openly challenging Maya's authority as team leader. "This is exactly why mixed-species teams fail," he declared loudly enough for other teams to hear. "You're too weak to make hard decisions, and your pet wolf is too scared to fight." "Our job is to prevent fighting, not start it," Maya shot back. "Sometimes fighting is the only solution," Velthon replied. "But you're too human to understand that." The comment hit Maya like a physical blow. Throughout her time at the academy, she had tried to prove that humans could be just as capable as any other species. To have her humanity used as an insult in front of her classmates was devastating. But Kethare's reaction was even stronger. His amber eyes blazed with fury, and, for a moment Maya thought he might actually attack the much larger Draconian. Instead, he did something that surprised everyone in the room. He laughed. "You're absolutely right, Velthon," he said with deadly calm. "Humans are different. They're so weak that they've established colonies on hundreds of worlds. They're so scared that they've formed alliances with dozens of species who were enemies before humans arrived. They're so soft that they rescued an exiled Lupari who every other species would have left to die." Kethare stood up, his smaller frame somehow seeming to dominate the room through pure force of personality. "But, you know what makes humans truly dangerous? They don't think like any other species in the galaxy. They solve problems that we can't solve. They see possibilities that we can't see. And they never, ever give up on someone they consider family." He turned to address the entire class, his voice carrying clearly through the suddenly silent room. "Maya-chan saved my life, not because it benefited her, but because it was right. She gave me a chance when my own people threw me away. She stood beside me when everyone said I was worthless. That's not weakness, that's strength that most species can't even comprehend." The room was completely quiet now. Even the instructors had stopped what they were doing to listen. "So yes, Velthon, she's too human to understand your approach. She's too human to solve problems with violence when intelligence works better. She's too human to abandon her principles when things get difficult. And if that makes her weak in your eyes, then you're too stupid to understand what real strength looks like." Velthon was furious, his reptilian features flushed with rage. "How dare you!" "Enough," Major Esikator's voice cut through the tension like a knife. The massive instructor had been observing the exercise from across the room, but now he approached their team with deliberate steps. "Cadet Velthon, you will report to my office after this exercise. Cadet Kethare, that was an impressive display of tactical psychology. You just demonstrated more effective leadership in 5 minutes than most cadets achieve in a full semester." "Sir?" Kethare looked confused. "Leadership isn't about being the strongest or the loudest," Major Esikator explained. "It's about inspiring others to be their best. By defending your partner's approach and reframing the entire discussion, you've shown this class what genuine leadership looks like." He turned to address everyone in the room. "This exercise isn't just about solving crisis scenarios. It's about learning to work with beings who think differently than you do. The galaxy is vast and complex, the solutions that work for one species may fail completely for another. The best leaders learn to synthesize different approaches into strategies that no single species could develop alone." After the class, several cadets approached Maya and Kethare with new respect. Even some who had been dismissive before seemed genuinely interested in learning from their partnership approach. But the most surprising reaction came from an unexpected source. "Impressive speech, Wolf Boy," said a voice behind them as they walked back to their dormitory. They turned to find a young Corvin female, the same species as the aggressive reptilian cadet Maya had worked with in communication class. "I'm sorry?" Kethare replied cautiously. "I said it was impressive," she repeated. I'm Cadet Zaraketh. I've been watching your partnership since you arrived here, trying to understand how you make it work so well. Why? Maya asked. Zaraketh looked uncomfortable for a moment. Because I've never had a real partner. My people value individual achievement above all else. We're taught that depending on others is weakness. But, you're starting to think differently? Kethare asked gently. I'm starting to think we might be wrong about some things, she admitted. You two accomplish more together than either of you could alone. That's not something my species understands well. Over the following weeks, their small group began to attract other cadets who were interested in collaborative approaches to problem solving. They formed study groups that included beings from a dozen different species, each contributing their unique perspectives to complex challenges. Maya found herself naturally taking on a leadership role, helping to mediate between different cultural approaches and communication styles. Her human ability to empathize with multiple viewpoints made her invaluable in resolving conflicts and finding common ground. Kethare became the group's strategic analyst, using his pattern recognition abilities to identify solutions that others missed. His exile experience had taught him to see problems from unconventional angles, and his scientific background helped him break down complex issues into manageable components. But their real breakthrough came during the semester's final examination, a comprehensive crisis simulation that would test everything they had learned. The Proxima Colony Crisis, Commander Thale announced as she briefed the assembled cadets. You have been assigned to teams of 8 members each. Your mission is to respond to a multifaceted emergency that threatens the survival of an entire colony world. The scenario was nightmarish in its complexity. A colony world with 3 million inhabitants was facing simultaneous disasters: an approaching asteroid that could cause mass extinction, a plague outbreak that was overwhelming medical facilities, and the breakdown of negotiations with an indigenous alien species that controlled critical resources needed for evacuation. Maya's team included herself, Kethare, Zaraketh, and 5 other cadets from different species. They had 72 hours to develop a comprehensive response plan that addressed all aspects of the crisis. This is impossible, complained Cadet Thexel, a pessimistic being whose species was known for their analytical minds. We can't solve an asteroid impact, a medical emergency, and a diplomatic crisis simultaneously. Maybe we don't have to solve them separately, Maya said thoughtfully. What if the problems are connected in ways that create opportunities? Kethare was already pulling up data on the scenario parameters. The indigenous species, the Veltari, they have advanced biotechnology that could help with the plague. But they're refusing to share it because they think the colonists are planning to strip mine their sacred sites. And the asteroid impact is creating urgency that's making everyone panic instead of think clearly, added Zaraketh. So what if we propose using the asteroid itself as a solution? Maya suggested. Instead of trying to destroy it or deflect it, what if we could mine it for resources that the Veltari need for their own projects? The team spent hours developing a complex 3-part strategy. Instead of treating each crisis separately, they designed an integrated approach that used solutions to one problem to create opportunities for solving the others. They proposed using advanced mining equipment to extract rare minerals from the approaching asteroid while simultaneously deflecting its trajectory. The minerals would be offered to the Veltari as a gesture of cooperation, along with guarantees that their sacred sites would be protected. In exchange, the Veltari would share their biotechnology to combat the plague. But the real innovation was in the implementation timeline. Rather than trying to solve everything at once, they created a carefully orchestrated sequence where each successful step built trust and momentum for the next phase. The key is demonstrating good faith, Maya explained to the examining board. Each species needs to see concrete evidence that cooperation benefits everyone involved. And if one part of the plan fails, asked Commander Thale. We've built in redundancies and alternative approaches for each major component, Kethare replied, activating a holographic display that showed multiple contingency plans. The strategy is designed to adapt based on changing circumstances. The examining board, composed of senior officers from multiple species, studied their proposal with intense scrutiny. Several asked pointed questions about resource allocation, timeline feasibility, and diplomatic protocols. Finally, Admiral Chendar, the Academy's Centauri commandant, spoke for the board. In 30 years of reviewing student crisis responses, I have never seen such a comprehensive integration of tactical, diplomatic, and strategic thinking. This plan demonstrates genuine understanding of how different species can work together to achieve goals that none could accomplish alone. She paused, looking directly at Maya and Kethare. More importantly, it shows that you have learned the Academy's most crucial lesson: the galaxy's greatest challenges require the galaxy's greatest diversity of thought. When the final rankings were announced, Maya's team had achieved the highest scores in Academy history. But, more importantly, their success had demonstrated something that changed how the Academy approached training. Effective partnerships between different species aren't just possible, Commander Thale explained to the assembled cadets during the graduation ceremony. They're essential for the challenges we face in an expanding galaxy. The future belongs to those who can build bridges between different ways of thinking. As Maya and Kethare prepared to leave the Academy for their first assignment, they reflected on how much had changed since that first day when they had been two scared teenagers trying to prove they belonged. Any regrets? Maya asked as they packed their belongings. About leaving the Academy? No, Kethare replied. About trusting you with my life 6 months ago? Never. Good, because our next assignment looks even more challenging than anything we faced here. They had been selected for a special reconnaissance mission to an unexplored sector where several colony ships had gone missing under mysterious circumstances. It was exactly the kind of assignment that required both Maya's diplomatic skills and Kethare's analytical abilities. Are you ready for whatever we might find out there? Maya asked. Kethare smiled, his amber eyes bright with confidence and anticipation. With you as my partner? I'm ready for anything. As their transport ship prepared for departure, Maya looked back at the Academy one last time. They had arrived as outsiders trying to prove themselves worthy. They were leaving as partners whose unique abilities had already begun to change how the galaxy thought about cooperation and strength. The Academy had tested them in every way possible, and they had not just survived, they had shown others new ways to succeed. But Maya suspected that their real test was still ahead of them, somewhere in the dark reaches of unexplored space where colony ships had vanished without a trace. Lieutenant Maya Chen stood on the bridge of the CDF reconnaissance vessel Pathfinder, watching the twisted wreckage of a colony ship drift silently through space. The massive vessel had been torn apart by forces she couldn't identify, its hull split open like a broken egg, spilling the dreams and hopes of thousands of colonists into the cosmic void. That's the third one in this system, reported Lieutenant Kethare from his sensor station, his amber eyes reflecting the glow of his analytical displays. The New Harmony, the Pioneer's Dream, and, now the Golden Horizon. All colony ships, all destroyed in the same manner. Captain Sarah Okafor, a veteran officer with graying temples and stern eyes, studied the tactical display with growing concern. Any signs of survivors? Negative, Captain, Maya replied from the communications station. I'm detecting no life signs, no distress beacons, no emergency pods. Whatever happened here, it happened fast. The past year since graduating from the Academy had been a whirlwind for Maya and Kethare. Their partnership had proven so effective that they'd been assigned to increasingly important missions throughout the Colonial Defense Force. They'd helped negotiate peace between warring alien factions, analyze threats from unknown technologies, and solve diplomatic crises that had stumped veteran officers for months. But this assignment was different. This was personal. The missing colony ships represented over 50,000 civilians, families seeking new homes among the stars, refugees fleeing war-torn worlds, explorers hoping to build better futures for their children. Among those families had been people they knew, friends from the Academy, even some of Maya's distant relatives who had joined a later colony expedition. Lieutenant Chen, Lieutenant Kethare, Captain Okafor called them over to the main tactical display. What's your analysis of the attack patterns? Maya studied the wreckage distribution while Kethare ran calculations on the debris trajectories. They had developed an almost telepathic working relationship over the past year, each understanding how the other's mind worked. The damage is consistent across all 3 ships, Maya reported. Precise cuts through critical systems, engines, life support, communications, followed by structural collapse. Energy weapon signatures suggest a technology we haven't encountered before, Kethare added. But, the targeting pattern is too precise to be random. These attackers knew exactly how to disable colony ships efficiently. Pirates, suggested Commander Torres, the ship's tactical officer. No, Maya said immediately. Pirates want cargo and ransom opportunities. This is complete destruction with no attempt at boarding or salvage. Then, what are we dealing with? Captain Okafor asked. Kethare's ears flattened against his head, a sign that he was deeply troubled by something he was seeing in the data. Captain, I'm detecting trace radiation signatures that don't match any known weapons. And, the precision of the attacks suggests the attackers had detailed knowledge of our ship designs. You're thinking inside intelligence again, Maya said, recognizing the pattern from their academy training. It's the only explanation that fits the evidence, Kethare replied grimly. Someone is feeding information to these attackers' ship manifests, course data, defensive capabilities. That's why the colony ships had no warning and no chance to fight back. Captain Okafor's expression darkened. A traitor within the Colonial Defense Force was every officer's worst nightmare. Can you trace the intelligence breach? We'll need access to the communication logs from all 3 ships, Maya said. If someone is passing information, there will be traces in the data transmissions. The problem is that all 3 ships' computer cores were specifically targeted and destroyed, Kethare observed. This wasn't random destruction, someone wanted to make sure we couldn't analyze their communication records. They spent the next several hours conducting detailed forensic analysis of the wreckage. Maya used her communication expertise to search for any surviving message fragments, while Kethare applied his pattern recognition abilities to reconstruct the attack sequences from debris patterns. Working together, they began to piece together a horrifying picture. Captain, Maya reported after hours of careful investigation, we've found something. Fragments of a distress signal from the Golden Horizon that was transmitted just before the attack. The signal was badly corrupted, but Maya's language skills allowed her to reconstruct enough of the message to understand its contents. Unknown vessels approaching, weapons charging, they know our defensive positions, this is impossible, how could they, signal lost, she read aloud. They know our defensive positions, Captain Okafor repeated slowly. That confirms the intelligence leak theory. It's worse than that, Kethare said quietly. I've been analyzing the attack timing across all 3 incidents. The attackers didn't just know the ship's defensive capabilities, they knew exactly when the ships would be most vulnerable. He projected a holographic timeline showing the 3 attacks. The New Harmony was attacked during a scheduled maintenance cycle when half their weapons were offline. The Pioneer's Dream was hit during a shift change when their sensor operators were distracted. The Golden Horizon was destroyed right after they had launched their scout ships, leaving them undermanned and defenseless. Someone with access to operational schedules and maintenance records, Captain Okafor concluded. Someone high up in the Colonial Defense Force command structure, Maya added grimly. The investigation took on new urgency as they realized they weren't just hunting unknown attackers, they were hunting a traitor within their own organization. Every communication they sent back to CDF headquarters could potentially be compromised, putting not just their mission but their lives at risk. We need to find the attackers' base of operations, Captain Okafor decided. If we can capture one of their ships or personnel, we might be able to trace the intelligence leak. I have an idea, Kethare said slowly. But, you're not going to like it. His plan was audacious and dangerous. Based on his analysis of the attack patterns, he had identified the most likely location for the attackers' staging area, a rogue asteroid in the outer system that provided perfect cover and resources for a hidden base. But, simply approaching the asteroid would be suicide if their suspicions about the intelligence leak were correct. The attackers would know they were coming and be ready for them. We need to appear to be doing something else entirely, Kethare explained. Create a cover story that explains our presence in the system without revealing our true mission. Maya immediately understood where he was going with the plan. A scientific survey mission. We're here to study the unique mineral formations in the asteroid belt. Exactly. And, if our traitor reports our fake mission to the attackers, they'll assume we're not a threat. Captain Okafor studied their proposal carefully. It's risky. If they see through the deception, we'll be walking into a trap. With respect, Captain, Maya said, we're already in a trap. The only question is whether we spring it on our terms or theirs. The deception required careful preparation. Maya crafted scientific reports and communication logs that would support their cover story, while Kethare modified their sensor sweeps to look like geological surveys rather than military reconnaissance. As they approached the suspect asteroid, they maintained constant communication with CDF headquarters, reporting their scientific findings in detail. If there was a traitor monitoring their transmissions, they wanted to ensure he received exactly the information that would support their cover story. Fascinating mineral structures, Maya reported over the open communication channel. Dr. Kethare believes these formations could provide insights into early planetary formation processes. The crystalline matrices are unlike anything we've seen before, Kethare added, playing his role perfectly. We'll need to conduct close-range analysis to fully understand their properties. What they were actually doing was mapping the asteroid's defensive positions and identifying potential entry points to the hidden base they suspected lay within. The asteroid was massive, nearly 50 kilometers across, with a surface pocked by impact craters and riddled with natural caves. But Kethare's sensors detected artificial structures deep within the rock, hidden from casual observation but visible to their advanced scanning equipment. Got it, he whispered as they completed their survey. There's definitely a base inside that asteroid. I'm reading power signatures, artificial atmosphere, and what looks like a landing bay carved into the southern face. How many ships? Captain Okafor asked quietly. At least a dozen, maybe more. Some of them are designs I don't recognize, definitely not from any known species in our databases. Maya felt a chill run down her spine. Unknown alien attackers with inside information about Colonial Defense Force operations represented a threat beyond anything they had trained for. Captain, she said quietly, I think we need to consider the possibility that we're dealing with more than just pirates or raiders. What do you mean? These unknown ship designs, the precise intelligence about our operations, the systematic targeting of colony ships, this feels like a coordinated campaign against human expansion into this sector. Kethare's ears perked up as he processed the implications. Maya's right. This isn't random predation. Someone is actively trying to stop human colonization efforts. Before Captain Okafor could respond, their communication console erupted with an incoming priority message from CDF headquarters. Pathfinder, this is Admiral Harrison, came the familiar voice of their sector commander. We've received your scientific reports and are impressed by your findings. However, we need you to cut your survey short and return immediately for reassignment. Maya and Kethare exchanged worried glances. The timing of this order was too convenient to be coincidental. Admiral, we're on the verge of a significant discovery here, Captain Okafor replied carefully. Request permission to complete our analysis. Negative, Pathfinder. You will cease all activities and return to base immediately. That's a direct order. Captain Okafor muted the communication channel and turned to her officers. What do you think? It's our traitor, Maya said immediately. He knows we're getting close to something, and he's trying to pull us out before we can discover it. But, if we disobey direct orders from Sector Command, Captain Okafor began. Then, we'll face court-martial proceedings, Kethare finished. But, if we leave now, thousands more colonists will die, and we'll never identify the intelligence leak. The decision was agonizing for a career officer like Captain Okafor, but the evidence was clear. We stay, she decided. But, we need to move fast before they send ships to forcibly retrieve us. Their window of opportunity was rapidly closing. If Admiral Harrison was indeed their traitor, he would soon realize that they weren't going to obey his recall order and would take steps to protect his operation. We need to get inside that base and gather proof, Maya said. Evidence we can take directly to CDF High Command that bypasses the normal communication channels. A covert infiltration mission, Kethare agreed. Small team, minimal equipment, in and out before they realize we're there. Captain Okafor shook her head. Too dangerous. If you're captured, we lose not just you but any chance of exposing this conspiracy. With respect, Captain, Maya said firmly, Kethare and I are the team best equipped for this mission. We've trained for exactly this kind of scenario, and our partnership approach gives us advantages that a conventional infiltration team wouldn't have. She's right, Kethare added. My sensor analysis skills can help us avoid detection systems, and Maya's communication abilities could help us extract information from any personnel we encounter. After a long moment, Captain Okafor nodded reluctantly. 1 hour reconnaissance mission. You get in, gather evidence, and get out. Do not engage unless absolutely necessary. The infiltration required all their academy training and more. Using a modified shuttle configured for stealth operations, Maya and Kethare approached the asteroid base through a complex route designed to avoid the sensor networks Kethare had mapped. The landing bay was exactly where his analysis had predicted, hidden in a natural crater that had been modified with artificial camouflage. They docked their shuttle in a maintenance area that appeared to be temporarily unoccupied. Atmospheric composition is breathable, Maya reported as they prepared to enter the base. But I'm detecting trace pheromones that suggest multiple alien species operating here. I'm picking up at least 7 different biochemical signatures, Kethare confirmed. This isn't just one species, it's a coalition. They made their way through the base's corridors, using Kethare's analytical abilities to avoid security sensors and Maya's communication skills to interpret the alien writing on various control panels and directional signs. The base was larger and more sophisticated than they had expected. Massive hangars housed ships from multiple species, while advanced communication arrays connected the facility to networks throughout the galaxy. Maya, Kethare whispered as they approached the main command center, look at those ship configurations. I recognize some of those designs from our xenology studies. Maya studied the vessels through an observation window and felt her blood run cold. Zephyrian attack ships. Corvan raiders. Draconian battlecruisers. These aren't just pirates, these are military vessels from species that are officially at peace with the Colonial Defense Force. A secret alliance against human expansion, Kethare realized. That's why they have such good intelligence, they're getting information from multiple sources within our organization. They needed to access the base's communication logs to identify their contacts within the CDF, but the command center was heavily guarded and protected by security systems beyond their ability to bypass covertly. We need a distraction, Maya said, studying the guard rotations they had observed. Or we need to become part of the system, Kethare suggested thoughtfully. What do you mean? I've been analyzing their communication protocols. They're using a modified version of standard galactic trade languages. If we could access their network remotely. Maya immediately understood his thinking. You want to hack their system from outside. Not hack, infiltrate. With your language skills and my technical analysis, we might be able to pose as legitimate users and access their files without triggering security alerts. It was an audacious plan, but their partnership approach had always worked best when they combined their different abilities in unexpected ways. Working together from a hidden maintenance alcove, they accessed the base's communication network using a portable interface kit. Maya translated the alien security protocols while Kethare mapped the system's architecture. I'm in, Maya whispered as she successfully navigated the authentication process by posing as a Zephyrian communications officer. Accessing their contact database now. What they found was worse than they had imagined. The conspiracy reached deep into the Colonial Defense Force hierarchy, with contacts in Fleet Command, Intelligence Services, and even civilian colonial administration. Admiral Harrison is just one of dozens of contacts, Kethare observed as he downloaded the files. They have people in every major department. And they're planning something big, Maya added, reading through intercepted CDF communications. A massive coordinated attack on the main colonial staging area at Kepler Station. The attack was scheduled for the following week, when a large convoy of colony ships would be gathered at the station preparing for departure. The station's defenses would be compromised from within, leaving over 200,000 civilians vulnerable to destruction. We have to warn them, Maya said urgently. But, we can't use normal communication channels, Kethare pointed out. Any message we send through CDF networks will be intercepted by the conspirators. They needed to get the evidence directly to trustworthy authorities, but first they had to escape from the base without alerting the enemy to what they had discovered. Their careful withdrawal was complicated by increased activity throughout the facility. Ships were preparing for departure, and security patrols had been stepped up. Something's changed, Maya observed as they made their way back toward the landing bay. Admiral Harrison must have realized we're not returning to base, Kethare agreed. They're probably preparing to move against us. Their suspicions were confirmed when they reached their shuttle and found it surrounded by armed guards from multiple alien species. So much for the covert approach, Maya muttered. We could try to fight our way out, Kethare suggested, though his tone indicated he didn't think much of their chances against a dozen heavily armed opponents. Or we could try something completely different, Maya said, studying the diverse group of guards. Look at the species composition of that squad. Zephyrians, Corvin, Draconians, and at least 2 others I don't recognize. They're all natural enemies working together. Which means their alliance is probably fragile, Kethare realized. Held together.